Welcome to Deck Analysis and Testing. Today we have a look at GAIA, and you may notice that I don't have the little guy in the corner. That's because it's broken, and I don't have the time to fix it yet, so yeah, it's just my voice today. GAIA is a good deck all the way back in 2021, and is one of the first decks that got a broken consistency skill alongside Red Dragon Archfiend. Since then, the deck has suffered from a lot of power creep, and now every deck has a broken consistency skill, so these guys needed to catch up. The result is, well, unsurprisingly, a new skill that's up to today's standards, and the missing support that we should have gotten years ago. GAIA is a fusion-based deck that aims to make big purple dragons and spellcasters that hit hard. Going first, you can make the old dragon Magical Knight for a quick effect pop, and going second, you can use the Eye of Timaeus on the free Dark Magician the skill gives you from thin air to make a Dark Cavalry or Dark Paladin to insulate your plays. Let's have a look at the cards. First is the new dragon, Curse of Dragon, the Cursed Dragon. Wow, what a wonderful name. It is a level 5 Dark Dragon that you can special summon from your deck using your skill that gives you a monster that cheats it out from your deck. And when it's normal special summoned, you can add a GAIA spell trap from your deck to your hand, and when it's sent to the graveyard, you can target one GAIA the Dragon Champion in your monster zone and negate all effects of your opponent's monsters that has a lower attack than your fusion monster. This is your main fusion material for your fusion monsters and also grabs you the fusion spell. Next are the GAIA monsters. This is a level 4 GAIA, which doesn't really have a good effect other than the last one, which can banish itself from the graveyard to return a monster to its original attack. This is very useful because one of your fusion monsters, which lowers its own attack, uses the lowering attack to pop cards, so making it back to its original attack will not only allow it to pop more cards, but also restore its attack when it drops to 0. Next is one copy of GAIA the Magical Knight. This is from a structure deck, and when it is normal or special summoned, you can special summon a level 5 dragon monster from your hand or graveyard, and if you control no monsters, or if your opponent controls a monster with 23 or more attack, you don't need any tributes to normal summon this card. This is really good, but because it is from a structure deck, we are only playing one. This is also another way you can get both a GAIA and a dragon onto your field, and also trigger its on summon effect. Next is Charging GAIA the Fierce Knight. This is just a free to obtain GAIA name for your future materials. Its effect doesn't really matter. It can be normal summoned as a 1900 attack guy, which does help attack for lethal, but otherwise it's just a GAIA name. And we have one copy of Artillery Catapult Turtle. This is the target for your skill, which lets you just summon this guy from your deck. It doesn't even summon it face down, it just summons it face up, so you can immediately use its effect to tribute itself and special summon the dragon, or sometimes the Magical Knight from your deck. And that is a 1-card combo. For the spells, we're playing 1 Reborn. You can reborn some really good fusion monsters, so it is really good. 2 Book of Eclipse, which is from this box. This card is insane. It's limited to 3 for a good reason. It's good going first, it's good going second. It also resets your attack when you use your fusion to pop stuff and lower its own attack. You can flip it face down, flip it back face up during your turn, and it gets back its original attack, so you can pop more stuff. Next is a fusion spell. You use it to make your GAIA fusion monsters, and it gains 26 and also can attack monsters twice. It's really good at giving your GAIA Magical Knight of Dragons more pops to spend. Next is the Eye of Timaeus. As I said in the intro, this helps you insulate your plays when going second by using it on the free Dark Magician that you get from your skill. You can either make Dark Cavalry or Dark Paladin usually, but occasionally you can also make other stuff such as the Dark Magicians. For the traps, we are playing 1 Spiral Reborn. It is searchable from your dragon, and it revives a level 7 or lower dragon monster. Usually it will be this fusion monster, and also if you revive GAIA the Dragon Champion, which this card is treated as that, it cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects for this turn. Actually, it's not for this turn, it's just permanent. Your opponent just cannot target or destroy that monster. And finally, we have 3 copies of Time-Space Trap Hole just as a generic back row. For the extra deck, you may notice that we have 9 slots now. That is correct. From the recent update, we do now have 9 extra deck slots, and that's pretty nice. That means we have more options, and let's have a look at what we play in this deck. Versus 1 Dark Paladin, we can make it using DI of Timaeus and negate spells. That is all it does. Dark Cavalry is sometimes better, sometimes worse, depending on if you know what set cards your opponent has. If you know that they search a bunch of quick play spells, maybe they're playing something like a Raid Raptor where they play a bunch of quick play spells, and the traps that they play, such as the counter trap, can't even be negated by Dark Cavalry because it doesn't target, you will much better off making Dark Paladin because it is not once per turn. Actually, they're both not once per turn, but Dark Paladin also negates other spells, such as the rank up spell that may not target your own stuff. Dark Cavalry is also good if you are playing other decks like Star Seraph, because they sometimes play stuff like Crackdown. Against like Sacred Beast, they play Crackdown as well. Dark Cavalry will be able to negate those as well. So depending on the situation, you can choose between Dark Cavalry if you don't know if your opponent has spell or traps, or if you are very sure that your opponent has more spells than traps, you can just play Dark Paladin. For the other fusions, we're playing 1 Dark Magicians as another target that we can theoretically summon from the Eye of Timaeus. For the GAIA fusions, we first have a Fusion Dragon, which is also level 5. This is kind of like a stepping stone to make the bigger fusion monsters. You don't go into this card very often. Usually you can just make the big fusions directly, but this card does allow you to grab back your fusions from the graveyard. It doesn't have to be the fusion spell, you can grab something like the Reborn Trap as well, but yeah, it is not used that often. But not this card. This card is one of the best fusions in our deck. It is a creature going first. It has a quick effect to lower its own attack by 26 to pop a card during the main phase, and also if it destroys something by battle, it gains 2600 attack, and both effects are hard once per turn, so even though the fusion spell allows you to attack twice, you still only get the attack boost once per turn. And for our last fusion monster, we have Dark Magician, the Knight of Dragon Magic. This card is not very good, but you can theoretically make it. And you only ever make this going second, even if you do. But usually you just make GAIA, the Magical Knight of Dragons anyway, because it's just such a good card. And for the links, we're just playing Lampharonicus and Draco Masters, and a copy of Pentastar. Pentastar is pretty funny as a tech option in this deck because you can give your Magical Knight piercing, and it has 5200 attack when you make it with the fusion spell, and you can just beat over a set monster your opponent has. Maybe you set it with your Book of Eclipse, or maybe you just have a defense position monster on their field, you can just attack over it and deal a ton of damage. Let's have a look at the skill. Spiral, leading to the Dragon Champion. You can only use the skill second and third effects once per duel. First effect is the restriction, it doesn't really matter too much in this deck. Second, during your main phase, play 1 artillery catapult turtle from your hand or deck to your field. And if your opponent controls more cards than you do, you can just rent a Poly and a Dark Magician to your field from thin air. You just get it for free. So you can use the Dark Magician to either just beat over your opponent's stuff, or you can most often times make it as a fusion material using your Timaeus, and just make a fusion monster with that. Okay, so here we have the expensive version of the deck. As you can see, we're playing a bunch of books because your Dark Cavalry has piercing, so afflicting stuff face down is very good, and also it resets your Dragon Knight attack when you use its effect to pop. And speaking of Dragon Knight, we are playing 2 copies of GAIA, the Magical Knight of Dragons, because it's such a good fusion monster. We're playing less links because honestly you won't make them that often anyway. And we're playing 2 Curse of Dragons, and more copies of the GAIA, the Magical Knight, and as per usual, 3 copies of the level 4 GAIA to reset our fusion monster's attack. And other than that, we're also playing a field spell. We're not playing this in the free-to-play version because there aren't a lot of good targets for this card to search. Because usually when you already use your one-of dragon to make your fusion monster, you don't have another dragon target for your field spell to search. So what ends up happening is that your deck will be filled up with Gaia monsters and 0 dragon monsters for you to search, and the search effect of the field spell just is completely wasted. But in this version we're playing 2, so the field spell is quite useful if we already have the fusion in our hand, and we are playing 2 copies of the fusion to be able to make more copies of the Magical Knight of the Dragons. Other than that, the deck is pretty similar. Okay, let's have a look at the games. In game 1, we are playing against a Raid Raptor, and we are going second. This game showcases the deck's ability to play through an opponent's established board. And as you can see, we drew the Eclipse, which is really huge against Raid Raptors. They could negate that with the counter trap. I think the counter trap will negate monster effects. Never mind. Yeah, the Book of Eclipse, and regardless of the version they're playing, is really good against both versions, because in case you aren't familiar, Raid Raptors have developed into 2 distinct playstyles over the times. One focuses on just spamming the field with a bunch of powerful Xyz with Evil Sword Nightmare, Solda, and just powerful Xyz. I think Requiem Dragon as well, and just aims to completely stop your opponent. And the second version plays more Raid Raptor names and makes Fuzzy Lanius and locks himself into Raid Raptors, and instead searches the counter trap and negates monster effects. And also sets the rank up magic and ranks up during your opponent's turn to trigger the trap to pop your card. But regardless, we can just flip everything face down, so we don't have to worry about any of those. And now that everything they have is offline, we can safely go into our combo. We can immediately make our Dark Paladin to negate any sort of follow-up or rank-up magics that they might still have. And we can just use our skill, grabbing ourselves a turtle, attributing itself to make the dragon, searching the Spiral Fusion, making Gaia the Magical Dragon Knight. It has 52 attack, because the fusion spell doubles its attack. Our opponent will be using the floating effect of Fuzzy Lanius to grab another copy of itself, and it's completely fine. And our fusion monster has a bunch of attack, but regrettably it's not lethal because it doesn't have piercing, and also the Xyz floats into another Xyz when it is destroyed. Our opponent will emissary their own back row so that they have space to use their Swallow's Nest to attempt to dodge the pop, but it doesn't work because we have a Dark Paladin, and that is a non-once per turn negate for spells. And even though he grabs back the rank up magic, it's too little too late, and if he even has another Soul Shade Force or something like that, we can still negate that, so he will be scooping. Let's have a look at our game 2. This time we're going first. Let's see what we can do. Our opponent is playing Wind... Never mind, they're not playing Wind Synchro. That was, I think, game 3. Oh, they're playing Fabled. And Fabled is not a very good deck, as you will be able to see, but let's see what our deck can do. We're going to again make the Gaia the Magical Knight of Dragons and set Book of Eclipse. That should be enough against Fabled. They could play through one pop pretty well, but not Book of Eclipse. That card just completely shuts down their deck for the entire turn unless they drew like 2 copies of Forbidden Lands or something. They're going to Forbidden Droplet our monster, and we will be chaining our Book of Eclipse. And even though we can't pop the monster because our monster is flipped face down, and thus we can't decrease our attack and pop the monster, we can still flip their stuff face down and stop them from being able to extend. They pass back to us, they're going to Crackdown, it's fine, they should have used it during the draw phase, but they couldn't because they can only target face-up monsters, and during the main phase we can just pop it in response. And even though our monster is now 0 attack, we can just restore it later, as you'll be able to see. We're going to make Dark Cavalry pierce for a ton of damage, and then use the level 4 Gaia from the graveyard, restoring our own monster's attack, and attacking the attack position monster for a lethal amount of damage. Okay, let's have a look at the expensive version for our game 3. This time we are facing against Wind Synchro, and they are playing the very funny Bike. And we do have the perfect counter to the bike, because the bike can only be activated during the main phase to tag out into a synchro. So we can turn on our toggle and book them during our draw phase, and that completely stops them from doing anything relevant. If they're only going to make one synchro, we're going to use our Book of Moon. If they make more than one, we can just use our Book of Eclipse instead. Preferably, we don't want to use the Eclipse, because if we fail to attack over their monsters, they get a lot of free draws, which is not nice, and pretty much lose. We will immediately lose if they are able to do that. And thankfully, they only have one synchro, so we will book that during the draw phase, so that they can't tag out. During our main phase, we're going to print a Dark Magician out of thin air, and then using our normal poly to make our Dark Cavalry, because regrettably we do not open with the Tamias, so we will have to do this the old-fashioned way. We're going to use the first effect of a skill to make ourselves the usual turtle combo and fusion summoning a copy of Magical Dragon Knight. We're going to attack, and that's not lethal because he used Forbidden Droplet. He's going to summon a guy, and I guess he tries to pop my monster with the trap, but the trap needs 2 different attribute monsters on the field to be able to pop a monster. So if we use Eclipse, not only do we stop him from having 2 attributes, we also reset our own fusion monster's attack. So we'll just pierce and attack for game. And GG's.